Hey guys, what's up? This is Francisco with Valareso Capital, and we're gonna do a quick update, a quick market update. We're gonna go through the indexes, and we're also gonna take a look at some of the ETFs that I think that are looking interesting for next week. We're gonna take a look at the major indexes, as I mentioned, and we're gonna try to understand what the indexes are trying to tell us and where and what is gonna be the next high probability move in the market. So let's just get into the charts, and remember that all the information shared in this video is just based on my personal opinion and is not financial advice. So now let's just go into the market. Let's take a look right here. I have the Nasdaq Composite on my screens. I'm using Thinkorswim for my trading analysis. And for any of you guys that are new to the channel, the moving averages that I use, I have the 200 daily moving average, which is the pink line. I have the 50 daily moving average, which is the purple line. And then I use the 8 exponential moving average, which is the orange line right here. And then I use the 21 exponential moving average, which is the blue light moving average the light blue moving average in my screen. So as you can see, I have a couple levels here in the Nasdaq Composite. Of course, you can see that we held this 11,000 level, 11,100 level. And after holding that level, we actually move a little bit below it. And now we're holding above that attempted breakdown, which is now which now we can consider it to be a bear trap, and is acting kind of a fuel for a short covering rally. We can see that now we actually had a really strong move right here into this 618 Fibonacci retracement measured from this swing high to this swing low right here. And you can see that actually right there at that level is where we stop. Is a very strong level for any of you guys who follow Fibonacci. Now, what is pretty interesting is that the indicator that I have right here is a momentum indicator, is the trend oscillator developed by Sam Shames. And I have found a lot of success using this indicator. And you can see that since we actually broke below that red line, which is what Sam calls the EMA of the momentum indicator, you can see that the market has been on a downtrend, right? And you can see that the trend oscillator, which is actually the green line right here, has been below that moving average the entire time. Now, we continue to be below that moving average. So the expectation is that any move into resistance levels like this 0618 level or that 50 daily moving average are actually going to be rallies into resistance, and then we can expect another move down. Of course, if anything changes, we're going to get a move of the trend oscillator above that line, and then we could consider it to be a change in trend. I also use the squeeze indicator, and you can see that right now we actually have a squeeze, which could also be an indication. You see that we actually had a squeeze somewhere around this level right here, and we actually had a run, and now we're having another squeeze, and you can see that we're flagging right above that 21 exponential moving average. So there's a chance, I think there's a probability that we're gonna test that 50 daily moving average. And this line right here, for any of you guys who know a little bit more in depth Fibonacci, that's actually a Fibonacci projection. And that projection was a measure move from this swing low to this swing high, and then projected into this level right here. And you can see that the projection comes somewhere around 13,000. So I've been looking for somewhere around here to be resistant if we happen to break above this 0618 level for more than just one day. I'll be looking for a strong move somewhere around 13,000. That's kind of the expectation that I have. And of course, we could actually see a pullback to close this gap below. We actually have a gap open. And then probably we will find support then and move to the upside. But of course, if we actually lose this gap, I will expect this to continue lower and the bear market to continue. Now that we have reviewed the Nasdaq Composite, let's take a look at the SPY. And actually the indexes look pretty similar, so we can just blast through this pretty quickly. And you can see kind of the same action in the SPY. You can see that the momentum indicator actually broke somewhere around here. And then after, even though we make new highs, that momentum indicator continue to move below the EMA, which is the red line. And you can see that we continue to move to the downside. Now, we also have a squeeze, which is a little bit promising, right? We actually had a squeeze here after this move to the upside. And now we're having a squeeze, but of course, momentum continues to be negative and we continue to be below this line, which also signals that there's a lot of negative momentum in the market. Now you can see that we stop right there at that 1272 extension, which is a Fibonacci extension measure from this high to this swing low. And I also made a measure from this swing high to this swing low, and that's the 0618 level here, which is somewhere around that 430 level. And I do think that if we happen to break above this flag right here, I'm gonna be aware of this level as a possible level of resistance. So be aware to have that 430 level mark on your charts. So that way you can use that as a possible level of resistance if you want to short, or if you want to get out of some of your long positions, or you just want to manage risk. Also remember that we also have these highs right here. So that's a level that I'm definitely gonna be watching moving forward into the next weeks. Now let's take a look at the QQQ. And you can see QQQ basically the same action, right? We continue to be below that EMA, but of course, right now we have a squeeze similar to the other indexes. You can see that we stop right there at that 0618 level, measure from this swing high to this swing low. And now the projected move, which is a similar move like this one, comes somewhere around 334.59. So I'll be expecting, if we actually break from this gap, I'll be expecting that we are going to find some resistance somewhere around this level, which is somewhere around 330 to 335. So also be aware of those levels in the QQQs. And of course, if we happen to break below this gap open that we have, I'll be expecting a continuation lower. But of course, let's just let price action to lead the way. Now let's take a look at the DIA. And basically in the DIA, we're seeing the same, right? We actually see that the DIA broke the momentum oscillator, broke somewhere around this level right here. And then of course, the DIA has been trending slightly lower, a little bit more choppy than the other indexes. But as we are seeing right now, we're kind of seeing the same action, right? We actually kind of have like a head and shoulders bottoming pattern. Now we're moving above it. We're holding that 21 exponential moving average and that 8 exponential moving average. However, we continue to be below that 50 daily moving average. However, we have a squeeze, which is similar to the squeeze that we actually had right here. We kind of have a rally, but of course, we're near that declining 50 daily moving average, and we're also near that 0618 level, which is the Fibonacci measure from this swing high to this swing low. So if anything, I'll probably be aware of this level right here. You can see that this was support, then became resistance, which is somewhere around 340. If we happen to break from this flag, I'll be looking for this level right here as a possible level of resistance in the DIA. Then finally, the last index that I want to take a look at is the IWM. And what is pretty interesting about the IWM, you can see here that the IWM tested this level right here. We're holding that level so far, but you can see that the momentum indicator, and this is awesome, right? You can see the power when we actually look back. You can actually see the power of the trend oscillator, which is the momentum indicator that I have in my screens. You can see that we broke above that EMA line right here, right? Somewhere around right here. And you can see that we actually had a pretty strong move in the IWM. And then we broke below that EMA somewhere around here. And that's when actually a lot of people thought that we were just accumulating, but the momentum below all that accumulation was actually distribution. And you can see it pretty clearly right here in the momentum oscillator. And then of course, we actually broke above that red line, but we were unable to hold it. And that was somewhere around here. And then we have been on a really strong downtrend. And we can use this momentum indicator, which is the trend oscillator, as a tool to guide our trading and to basically guide the side that we're going to be favoring for our positions. So now back to the chart. we can see that we actually move above the 0618 level, which is measured from this swing high to this swing low. We have a squeeze, and the trend oscillator continued to be negative, so nothing interesting there. But right now we're having this flag above the 21 exponential moving average and that 8 exponential moving average. And I'll be looking for a possible move somewhere around here. Perhaps if we actually have a really, really strong rally, perhaps we're going to test that 200 level. But of course, that will mean a really significant rally. But first, we will need to get above this 194 level right here. So now that we took a look at the indexes, let's take a quick look at some of the other industries. So let's take a quick look at GDX, and you can see that GDX, right? I made a measure from this high to this low, and you can see that we actually had a pretty strong move. You can see that the momentum indicator broke above the red line somewhere around here. We had a really strong move. We broke below that line somewhere around here, and we have been on a downtrend. So any move into these resistance levels probably going to be an opportunity to short gold for a continuation to the downside. Now let's take a quick look at TNX, which is a very important chart right now. And you can see that the TNX has been on a really strong rally. It started somewhere around here. We have basically just continued to move higher, and now we had a test of that 50 daily moving average, and now we're coming into some very important levels of resistance measured from this high to this low. That's the Fibonacci retracement, which is the 618 point retracement, and you can see that we are continuing to hold that EMA on the trend oscillator. So this suggests that the TNX is getting ready for another move, at least to test these highs, or perhaps if we fail to hold above this 29.92, perhaps we're going to move to the downside. So this is a very important chart. It will be pretty interesting to see what happens if this chart actually breaks below the 50. That will be pretty interesting to see what actually happens in a stock like tech, like the QQQ, the Nasdaq Composite. That will be pretty interesting. So now let's continue to move. Let's take a look at the UVXY, which I think is a pretty interesting chart, right? You can see that the UVXY has been unable to move above that 200 daily moving average. And now we're starting to break below this 13.86 pivot, which suggests that we're most likely going to test this level down here. And that would also be an important thing. That would also suggest that we're going to see more of a rally in the indexes. And you can see right here that we have a squeeze that is actually pointing to the downside. So that is also another indicator that sums up to the thesis that we're actually going to see a move lower in the UVXY and then perhaps a move higher in the equity market. And then let's take a look at the VIX. I usually always take a look at the VIX and the UVXY to find commonalities. And you can see right here in the VIX that we continue to make lower highs, and now we're getting rejected at the 21 exponential moving average and that 8 exponential moving average. And you can see that the trend oscillator is trying to move below that blue line, which means that there's going to be a lot of negative momentum, which usually favors the bears in this market. And I'm talking the VIX right here. And you can see that we have a squeeze that is pointing to the downside, similar to the one that we had right here. And we had a really strong move to the downside. And we are actually breaking below this 24.94 pivot level. And that will suggest that we're going to be testing somewhere around this level right here, which is somewhere around 20. But of course, we need to let price lead the way. And now price is suggesting that it wants to move lower. And my momentum indicators are actually confirming that move. So that actually looks pretty interesting, and I think I actually think that does a plus for the bull thesis of a bear market rally that we're gonna have here. Now, some of the indexes I want to take a look at. One of the indexes is the SMH, and this is one that I've been talking a little bit on my Twitter feed, and you can see that actually when we actually printed this hammer candle, this higher low on actually good acceptable volume, we are actually moving above that 21 and that 8 exponential moving average. The fact that we're holding that 8 exponential moving average is pretty strong, and we're not getting strongly we're not getting strongly rejected by that 50 daily moving average, and we're actually having a squeeze. So I do think that there's a probability that we're going to test this 200 daily in the SMH. So be aware of some of the stocks that trade there. We have stocks like Nvidia, LRCX, AMD, and so many other names that actually look interesting. And one name that I think that looks particularly interesting, I think is On, which is, I think is in the is a semiconductor stock. And this one actually looks pretty strong. You can see that we are moving above that EMA that we haven't done for quite a while. This stock kind of have been chopping, but you can see that we have a squeeze and we have some nice accumulation on the recent candles, and we're actually moving above that 59 pivot. So I think that there's room all the way to 68.48. But now let's continue into some of the indexes. I have TAN, also my watch list. And you can see that TAN, pretty interesting, right? We're trying to move above this 50 line, which is the middle line in the trend oscillator. And if we are able to move above it, then probably we're going to get a kind of a rally, kind of the same situation that we had all the way back here. Probably we're going to see something interesting. Be aware of this level right here. You can see that we're kind of having this kind of a head and shoulders inverse head and shoulders bottoming pattern. It will be pretty interesting to see what is the reaction to that 200 daily, since we actually got rejected at that level before. But this one is also one that is looking interesting. Be sure to have this ETF on your watch list. And then finally, of course, XLE, which has been the true market leader. The sector has been the true market leader, and you can see that we actually broke out. And what is pretty amazing is that you can, right, just watch at the trend oscillator, right? The trend oscillator has been positive all the way down here, right? The trend oscillator has been positive, which actually raises the probability of a pullback buying working, right? So you can see that we hold at 21 day, hold at 21 day, hold at 21 day. We didn't break out, we didn't broke below that 50, even though the indicator broke a little bit below that EMA. But now you can see that we broke above it and that we're continuing higher. We actually had a squeeze, and the momentum oscillator looks pretty bullish. So those are some of the indexes that I wanted to share with you. I don't want to make this video pretty long. I don't think that there's a lot to say, right? Basically, the indexes, right? The composite, the Nasdaq composite, the QQQ, IWM, DIA, and the SPY, they continue to be in a downtrend. They have pretty similar charts. So there's not a lot to say about those indexes. And for the ETFs that I'm watching, I think XLE is one of the most important ones. And there's a lot of people watching it, so we have to be aware of that. And right now the index is a little bit extended from the pivot point, so don't be surprised if we actually have a pullback. Don't be surprised if we have a pullback, say somewhere around this 21 exponential moving average. But then I do think that if we see some rotation, I think that some of the ETFs that look interesting that we mentioned, one is TAN, which is the solar ETF, and the other ETF is the SMH, which also looks interesting a little bit. Then probably is going to provide a tradable bear market rally. So just be aware of that. Be aware that the indexes continue to be in a downtrend. We continue to be below a 200 daily moving average and below a declining 50 daily moving average. So any rally into resistance is going to be probably an opportunity to short again, or perhaps an opportunity to reduce exposure if you are heavily invested in the long side. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope this video was helpful. As once again, there is not much to say, right? The market continues to be trading kind of in a range. Of course, with a downtrend, we are in a downtrend environment, but we have been trading kind of in a range for the last couple of weeks. So just be aware of that. This continues to be a really choppy market, and the most important thing is to protect capital and mental capital as well. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. I hope that you have an amazing week, and be sure to also watch the weekly watch list video that I'm going to share in just a little bit. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Take care and peace. Bye-bye.